Today's sermon topic was selected by longtime church member Ellis Vance. Ellis was one of two winning bids for the sermon topic of your choice during our online auction this past February. Ellis selected the topic, Life After Loss. On November 7th of last year, Ellis's beloved husband of 55 years, Robin, passed into the mysteries of death after a long illness. Robin is mourned. Robin is missed. Yael was going to be a superstar. Everyone knew it. He was destined for greatness. In the mid-sized Midwestern city where Yael lived, he was known as the best sleight of hand artist in town. He was young, just turned 20, but he had spent the last 7 years practicing sleight of hand moves hours a day, obsessively. His dexterity was astounding. What his fingers, what his hands could do with coins and cards and billiard balls, it took your breath away. Coins appearing and vanishing, cards appearing behind your ear, in your wallet, within sealed envelopes. His goal was twofold: to be the best sleight of hand artist in the country, and two, to have his own solo act in Las Vegas. Everything Yael did was pointed in that direction, and he had total confidence that he could make his dream come true. A few more years of intense and disciplined practice, and he would be skilled enough. What no one anticipated on that early autumn afternoon was a car door opening into the street. What no one anticipated was Yael speeding on his bike, smashing full force into that car door and being tossed head over heels and onto the pavement. The full force of his body weight landed on top of his right hand. And in an instant, Yael's dream was shattered. 5 hand surgeries later, Yael had to accept the stark reality that he had no future as a sleight of hand artist in Las Vegas or anywhere. The damage to his hand was too great to reclaim a professional level of dexterity. Yael's loss felt total and complete and unendurable. In her book, Necessary Losses, author Judith Voist writes, "Loss is an encompassing theme in our life. We lose not only through death, but also by circumstances beyond our control. Also, we lose by leaving and being left, by changing and letting go and moving on. And our losses include not only our separations and departures, but our conscious and unconscious losses of romantic dreams, hopes, impossible expectations for ourselves, illusions of freedom, illusions of safety. The losses involving facing the limitations of our power and potential. the losses of relinquishing our dreams of relationships for the human realities of imperfect connections. And the losses, the multiple losses of the second half of life and of our final leaving, letting go. She continues, these losses are part of life, universal, unavoidable. Examining these losses does not make for merry remedies, but to look at loss is to see how inextricably our losses are linked to growth, and to become aware of the ways in which our response to loss have shaped our lives can be the beginning of wisdom. Loss comes in so many forms and experiences, as Laurie stated in her reflection. And as I look out at you in this sanctuary, and I think of those who are on the sanctuary of our virtual campus, I know that all of us have experienced or will experience life-altering changes. And I know some of us have endured life-shattering loss. I'm also aware that in 2022, we are living in a time of massive shared loss. The pandemic upended life as we knew it and created loss on so many levels. Loss of our sense of safety, loss from prolonged isolation, loss of class connections in the classroom, for some, loss of health or livelihood. Some of us are grieving loved ones lost to the virus. Our shared loss reaches beyond the pandemic. We've witnessed the loss of public civility and the advent of false news and armed insurrection. We face the possible loss of democracy. We face unfathomable loss from human-created climate crisis. Just look at the hurricane in Cuba, Florida. Look at the flooding in Pakistan. It's important to also say that BIPOC communities continue to face generational legacies of loss and ever-present ongoing loss perpetrated by white primacy culture. So much loss. We ask, as poet Stanley Kunitz once did, how shall my heart be reconciled to its feast of losses? Poet Ellen Bass writes, when everything you've held dear crumbles like burnt paper in your hands, your throat filled with the silt of it, when grief sits with you, its tropical heat thickening the air, heavy as water, more fit for gills than lungs, when grief weighs you down like your own flesh, only more of it, an obesity of grief, you think, how can a body withstand this? How can a body withstand this? My mom's mother passed into the mysteries of death when my mom was 19 years old, really still a teenager. Mom remembers stepping out of the bedroom where her mother had just died, walking down the steps to the first floor, opening the front door and going out to sit on the front steps. Mom told me it was the most unsettling and awful feeling. Cars were driving by with people going to work as they did every morning. People were waiting at the bus stop, chatting as though nothing was wrong. The paper boy walked by and handed me the newspaper as if my mom's obituary wouldn't be printed in it in 2 days' time. Inside, my mom said, my world had just ended, and outside, everything was the way it always was. I thought, how can I live in this split reality? My friend and my colleague, the Reverend Kim Crawford Harvey, writes, I remember a woman whose husband died, leaving her to raise 2 young sons. Utterly devastated, she went to bed. As she tells it, she might never have gotten up. But she did get up, and there was really no mystery about it. One of the boys came into her room and said, quite simply, Mom, we are out of peanut butter. Reeling with the blow, she determined to stagger to her feet again, and life went on. My dear ones, when have you had to stagger to your feet and make your life go on? "11 years ago, an unexpected and completely unwanted divorce from my husband of 26 years happened. When Jim told me that he was leaving, the future that I had envisioned was just ripped away, and I was looking at only a vast and empty unknown. I was terrified at that vast, that absolutely empty unknown. But the harder I looked, I realized that there were lots of knowns within that larger unknown. There were my dogs, Shadow and Tucker. There was my ministry and my responsibilities to the congregation that I loved. There was jogging, yoga, Broadway. And there was a dear friend who had been through their own divorce and understood without me needing to say anything. Once I became able to name and claim all the knowns that were in there with me, the smaller the unknown became. And I was able to stagger to my feet and make my life go on again. Every person's experience of grieving their losses is unique. Every person's path through the valley of the shadows is their own. There is no map. There is only through. It's a journey. It really is a journey that we make alone. But we can allow companions to walk beside us. We can avoid isolating, although that is so often our impulse. we can talk to others. We can seek a support group, seek a grief group. They're the best. Call a therapist, call a hotline, call a minister. Ask for and use medication. There is no shame in meds, only potential relief. Trust me on that. Someone in their mid-80s told me how she endured the inevitable losses that come from a long life. The secret, she said, is to make sure you have friends who are 10 to 15 years younger than you. That way, she said, the odds are you won't outlive at least a few of your friends. Someone who lost their spouse about a year ago said that being around her grandchildren is key to her not being swallowed up by grief. She says, you can't stay stuck in that deep well of ache and numbness if you have kids around, because there's no way you want to drag them into that place with you. So you let them drag you back into play and laughter and light. The evenings are still long and hard, but the days are lighter with kids around. One elder told me it was the memories. So many good memories over a lifetime that they replayed in their mind's eye, like watching a film over and over. Memories bringing them a sweet and tender joy. Yael, that sleight of hand artist not to be, found his way through his loss when, as his hand healed from his 5th surgery, he volunteered to read the mail to someone who had recently lost their eyesight. Yael says, that gave me perspective quickly. It also gave me something to do, someone to hang out with, and unexpectedly, reading all those New York Times articles to my new friend opened me up to a world of possibilities for what my life might look like next. An elder of the church gave me permission to quote them when I asked them how they held on to life in the face of loss. They said, we need a community of some kind to hold us as we pass through grief. I couldn't do it alone, they said. That's the benefit of a church community. If I drag my butt here on Sunday morning, I'm not alone. If I show up in my Zoom chalice circle, I'm not alone. Everyone asks me, where do I get my strength? And I tell them, I get it from you, and you, and you, my church community. The elder continues, my advice to someone younger than me is to make the connections and find the community now, no matter what community it is. Make the connection when you don't need it. Make the friendships now when you don't need it. Get involved now when you don't need it. Then there will be something there when you do need it. And you will, she added. I think that's what Unitarian Universalist minister Robbie Walsh meant when he said, trust the strands of love that bend and stretch to hold you in the web of life that's often torn but always healing. There's your strength, the ground on which we walk together. Dear ones, this takes courage and determination. We do it imperfectly in fits and starts. Living with loss is sometimes like a circular staircase in which we sometimes walk up and sometimes walk down. There are setbacks and small successes. Both lead us into the next day. Perhaps that is how we are reconciled to our feast of losses. Unitarian poet Anne Sexton writes, "If you have endured great despair, then you did it. Getting a transfusion from the fire, picking the scabs off your heart, then wringing it out like a sock. Next, you powdered your sorrow, you gave it a back rub, and then you covered it with a blanket. And after it had slept a while, it woke to the wings of the roses and was transformed." Judith E. Meyer observes, "The work of grieving is a journey back to new life. The wound may be deep. It does not go away. Rather, the wound too becomes part of this new life. It requires a new way of being ourselves. We become life going on after loss and grief. Life going on to new experiences. We become life going on." Que así sea. Bendito sea. May it be so. Blessed be. Amen.